An organization founded in 1860 is still making an impact, and we'll introduce you to its CEO. What would a gun violence court do for Baton Rouge? We'll talk about that. And a couple of weeks ago, Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome announced her candidacy for mayor to a clear field. At least it was clear. Roll it, Kirk. About 8 years ago. You recognize that fella standing up there with Mayor President Broome. He's sitting here with me right now. Former state legislator, former member of the Biden administration, Ted James is here with probably the worst kept secret in all of Baton Rouge. What happened, man, from that video to where you are right now? Tell me about it.
I think the biggest thing that happened, Clay, is 8 years ago I wasn't a parent. And the Lord saw fit to bless me with a beautiful young girl. And as a 6-year-old now, my responsibility to the community that she's living in has changed, right? I hear countless stories of parents. I heard one today of a young man who he has 4 children. None of them live in Baton Rouge. And way too often our children are having to make the choice between home and opportunity. And for me, I have an obligation to reverse that trend and make sure more of our kids are staying home.
Did you have a conversation with the mayor about this choice?
We've had several conversations over the years.
About you running?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. This is not a personal deal, right?
All right.
November 5th, the winner of this election can and should be Baton Rouge. But because I do respect the mayor and I consider her a friend who I've supported and she supported me because we've been about Baton Rouge. So of course I gave her the benefit of that conversation.
Was there nothing she could have said to you or supporters have said to you to make you go, okay, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to let her do another 4 years, finish her term, and then run in 4 years?
Well, for me, it's not about myself or the mayor, right? It's about Baton Rouge and my obligation to the hometown that has nurtured me and guided me. There would be no presidential appointment without Baton Rouge. And my relationship and my commitment to Baton Rouge is greater than my commitment and relationship with any one person.
Is there anything about her term the last 8 years that motivated you to run or want to get in this? Because as we saw with that video, you were a great supporter of hers. What's motivating you to run? You
know, Clay, I spent the last 2 years traveling this country. I have gone to places like DeSoto, Texas, Little Rock, San Antonio, and I am seeing what quality of life is breeding when you have a spirit of excellence in your city parish government. And I fly back into Baton Rouge and I continue to ask myself, why are we being outpaced by other cities that don't have the infrastructure that we have, right? They don't have the only historically black college system in the world, Southern University. They don't have an LSU. They are not the seat of state government. They don't have the biggest ports. But still, in so many respects, we're stagnating. And for me, I had to make the decision whether or not to continue to bring all of the nurturing that Baton Rouge put into me into other communities as I've done over the past 2 years, or bring it all home. And to me, it's time for me to bring it home.
You know, you're announcing this now. You know how politics goes. I mean, you've done it. You've done well at it. People are going to see this as you say, it's not personal. You've never said anything negative personally about the mayor. But people are going to see this as you doing this to her, not choosing this as an opportunity to do something for the city. What is your response to that?
You know, my response is to look at my record. My record has always been about service to Baton Rouge, be it after Alton Sterling, I took the concerns of the people to the Capitol. Be it after the flood, I took the concerns of the people and we created the Red Stick retail shop. This has not changed, right? The positions and the titles may have changed. And quite honestly, I hear the conversations with the people of Baton Rouge, and we have to be honest about the things that are working and how we magnify those, but we have to have honest conversations about those things that are broken.
What's broken?
You know, several things. We have young people in our community right now that are not being serviced by our Head Start program. That's a problem, right? We have traditionally sent millions of dollars back to HUD that could be coming into the community to create safe, affordable housing, to do more for those that are unhoused. I've been to Birmingham, and I've seen what they've done with HUD funding, and we're sending funding back. That's a problem to me, right? You know, there are sometimes, you know, you expect major cities to do certain things, and you don't. That doesn't give me concern. But when I'm seeing cities that don't have any of the infrastructure that we have here in Baton Rouge, I have an obligation to do something, right?
You know, I know that you've got a number of friends who are still in the legislature and friends of yours who are in business. What feedback are they giving you about this choice?
You know, I'm having positive feedback, not just from friends in the legislature, from, you know, I was chairman of the Black Caucus. I'm getting encouragement from all across the legislature, from the Baton Rouge delegation to delegations all across the state. And some folks may say that doesn't mean anything. What people are saying to you outside of East Baton Rouge Parish doesn't mean anything. But for me, when I'm the mayor president of East Baton Rouge Parish, I'm going to spend a lot of time in that state capitol. And I'm going to bring a lot of our tax dollars that are going to the other 63 parishes right back to the capital city.
What about South Baton Rouge? You know, there is obviously the political divergence of thought between the two areas. One is more conservative and Republican. You know, how do you penetrate that area to get people to listen to you?
The same way I always have, right? I have always worked with a broad coalition of folks in the legislature to pass tax reform, police reform. You can't be a minority in the Louisiana legislature without having relationships with people who don't look like you and don't think like you. I'm gonna bring that same type of energy and passion to the mayor's office.
You know, in the next segment, I want to talk with you a bit about some topics: crime, infrastructure, the economy. The biggest takeaway from this, and how much time, Jacob, before break? All right, the biggest takeaway that you want people to leave with as you make this announcement before we come back is what?
The biggest takeaway is looking where we are today. And if you are comfortable where we are today, then obviously this decision is not going to be as hard for you. If you see Baton Rouge the way I see Baton Rouge, I see her for her potential. We have to do something different than we've done in the past. And this is not just about a new face. This is about new ideas to the same problems that we've always discussed.
We're going to come back and continue our discussion with now mayoral candidate Ted James, talk about his ideas for Baton Rouge. The Clay Young Show continues with this exclusive interview in just a moment.
It's the best of both worlds. Baton Rouge's best selection of premium cigars and an unparalleled cigar lounge experience. Located in Town Center, it's Don Juan Cigar Company and Don Juan Cigar Bar. Walk into our amazing humidor at Don Juan Cigar Company, then walk next door and experience the plush atmosphere of Don Juan Cigar Bar. Come see why we are Baton Rouge's cigar and good time authority. Don Juan Cigar Company and Don Juan Cigar Bar.
So we're talking with newly announced candidate for mayor, Ted James, and you talked about why you were running and some of the general story around why you were motivated. Let's get into some specifics. Let's talk about crime. Public safety is a big issue here. It's big all over the country.
Most definitely.
What's your perspective on crime in Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish, and how would a James administration address it?
You know, you asked me earlier what changed. Another thing that's changed, 8 years ago, the majority of people in this parish felt safe going about their daily routine. Today they don't, right? For me, a James administration is going to be more about consolidation as opposed to collaboration. We collaborate when there's an issue, right? There's a major topic of discussion here. There's crime in certain parts of the community. We coalesce together, but there's no real cohesiveness around our response, right?
Well, wait, you said consolidation.
Yes.
And I want people to understand you are referencing a consolidation of
I'm
law
talking
enforcement.
about consolidation of efforts,
Okay.
responsibilities,
Not law enforcement.
duties, everything, a whole of government approach to how we respond to crime. We have about 10 law enforcement agencies in the parish, right? Baton Rouge Police, the Sheriff, LSU, and Southern Police. They shouldn't be all doing their own things in a response to crime under my administration.
Okay.
As the mayor president, I'm going to come in and be the principal and the parent in the room alongside the sheriff and the DA. And we also got to start including our public defenders. I don't know what's going to happen with the system right now, but we have to have a whole of government approach. Throwing police, we're going to make sure that we fully fund the technology, the infrastructure. I believe that the law enforcement professionals in the capital city should be paid more than any other law enforcement professionals. I'm going to work to do that. But most importantly, my administration is going to, as aggressive as we're going to be with tackling violent crime, we're going to be aggressive on the root issues of crime.
Well, so that's two different things. So about the funding and technology, that's great.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Because the Broome administration's position has been they have extended as much as they can in dollars to pay officers more and get technology. What would you do differently?
We are still suffering from an age-old problem of recruitment of officers, right? We are still
that's
trying
not just
to
here, that's
most
nationally,
definitely here, but I'm concerned about the community that raised me, right? So we have to look at how do we incentivize young people I'm gonna hit all these high schools.
Yeah.
Every athlete, every ROTC program. Those are the folks we have to start talking about the beauty of the law enforcement profession, right? We have to approach them early. LSU Southern and BRCC, those criminal justice students, those are the students that we have to talk about the law enforcement profession. We're gonna work whole of government to recruit people into the profession. But way too often, we don't talk about those root issues that cause crime.
Which are?
Blighted communities drive crime. Abandoned storefronts drive crime. Homelessness, drug addiction drive crime.
Yeah.
Young people that are not in school, young people that are not in Head Start, they grow up to be those folks that are going to commit crime. My administration is going to focus on creating opportunities for those people that want them and help for the people that need it.
So businesses here, what's your perspective on the economy of Baton Rouge? Obviously, it's the mayor was here last week. We talked about unemployment rate here is lower than the national average. But what's your perspective on the economy of East Baton Rouge?
You know, I'll tell you, the Milken Institute has rated major metropolitan cities for years. In 2015, they rate us on job creation, economic development. In 2015, we ranked 21. Today, we rank 155, right? We have to look at employee BR, our workforce function, and our economic development function with BRAC and other institutions. We have to merge those. We have to make sure that they are not working in silos, they're working together. The training institutions that are working to build a strong workforce, they have to talk to those institutions that are working on recruiting major industries here. Another thing that I've witnessed in the past 2 years, my administration will do a lot more supporting the small business ecosystem that is already in place, right? We have to look at how we are helping them bring capital, right? Under the SBA, for the first time, we brought all of the lenders here that are doing small business financing. We had lender roundtables, bringing the entrepreneurs into the same room with the lenders. We have so many different organizations that are providing technical assistance. We have to make sure that we are building revenue through government contracting. Being certified, and I've learned this with the SBA, the certification is the easy part, right? As an administration, we have to make it easier on small businesses here. We're going to work with LED and BRAC to recruit major industries, of course. But we're also going to make sure the folks that you see every day in the grocery store, the people I see in the barbershop, we're going to create opportunities for them. I talked about HUD dollars. We're sending HUD dollars back. There are other mayors in other cities that don't have the infrastructure that we have in Baton Rouge. They're taking CDBG dollars and they're using them to provide capital for small businesses. I'm gonna beat the door down for all of our congressmen, not just the ones that are in Baton Rouge, but all of the ones across the state of Louisiana to make sure we're bringing more of those dollars home.
A little less than a minute, where can people learn about your platform?
TedJames.com.
So we're going to do this. I want to get you to come back and we'll sit upstairs and do a longer form conversation in the podcast. I wanted people to have an opportunity to hear why you want to run here, but we'll get you to come back and answer some questions. And again, TedJames.com. It truly was the worst kept secret in town.
Look, you know, we have been providing great service to this community for the past 15 years. And I don't think it's a secret that while I've traveled, I represented, as your regional administrator, about 530 counties or parishes. I only call one of them home.
All right, Ted James will be back. Coming up next, gun violence court here in Baton Rouge. We'll talk to the chief judge at the 19th JDC. There he is, Judge Don Johnson. So how would a gun violence court impact East Baton Rouge Parish? Well, we're asking the force behind it, the chief judge at the 19th JDC. And this is a new initiative. You and I have talked about this before, and in fact, we're going to talk about it in greater detail on the podcast that'll be airing this week. So what is gun violence court, Judge Johnson?
It's a model of innovation whereby the court and the team of prosecutors and the team of public defenders can provide specialized processes to move those cases to adjudication. What I'm proposing is that we elevate case management for particular types of violence, particularly gun violence. And it's necessary because of the fear and the public perception that things are not in order. And one of the things that's major is gun violence. Now, every day, on average, we have a gun-related offense that's committed. And we need to be very intentional about how we address that. what I want to do is say to the community that the court will be receptive to creating models of process where we afford the defendant their due process, give them all the protections,
Right.
give them the investigative tools, the forensic tools, and move these cases along quickly.
So, to unpack a little bit of what you said, which I think is important for people to catch, there is a logjam now because you are running myriad types of potential offenders or accused through the same court system. You're saying bifurcate off a different court that only deals with gun violence so that someone can get their speedy day in court and we can have it addressed without there being a logjam, because we have had situations where people have been accused of violent crime and end up on the streets because you've got such a logjam in the court.
We need to be very intentional and prioritize.
Okay.
Prioritize what is undermining the basic rule of law, the basic agreement of how to get along with each other.
Yeah.
And a threat to our system is guns and the use of weapons to solve disputes or to engage in criminality. So we've got to be focalized. And this is what I'm sensing that we're not focalizing. For example, none of the crime bills that were promoted in the session right now that's going on focused on involving courts and creating fast track models or enhanced divisions to focus on activity that directly really destroys what we're trying to have.
So how would this court be funded?
What I'm going to ask in the regular session that's coming up is this. I'd like for the legislature to say, for those district courts that would like to have specialized prosecutors, we will fund additional prosecutors for gun-related offenses.
Wow.
We will also equally fund defenders to defend those cases so that the defendant and the prosecutor will be able to come in the court ready to go, either try the case or resolve it by way of a plea negotiation or resolve it in a quicker manner. Now, here's what's happening. There's a generalized approach to crime and crime control, and we are receptive to changing our culture. Here's what I'm promoting in a nutshell. Let's create a specialized track with a specialized judge to sit there to hear these cases, and from date of arrest, we can complete every case within 1 year from date of arrest.
So look, I don't want to give everything away here because the judge and I are going to go upstairs and we're going to do the podcast and talk a little bit more about the genesis of this concept and be even more granular about how it impacts you here in the community. So that's going to be Judge Johnson with me on podcast 225 going upstairs, and you'll be able to download that at podcast225.com. And of course, you'll be able to hear the judge's thoughts behind this. But up next, we're going to have a conversation with the CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Louisiana. Here she is. They let her in the building. Angel Nelson, good friend of mine. Your organization's been around since 1860, and we're going to talk about all the great work she's doing in the Capital Region. Back with that in just a moment. So Angel Nelson is the CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Louisiana. You are here in Baton Rouge, you're in New Orleans, you're in Gretna. Am I forgetting an area?
Slidell and Covington.
Slidell and Covington, and we partner together on a number of community issues. But let's start with the most basic question. What programming do you provide?
And so, Clay, we focus in 5 core areas. And of course, it's education, healthy lifestyles, character and leadership development, the arts, and then sports and recreation.
I mentioned in the tease going into the break that the organization was founded in 1860, and you were telling Judge Johnson the story about that it was founded by how many women?
4 women.
4 women, and it started as the boys' clubs?
Yep, it surely did.
And they were looking for something for young people to do way back in 1860, a problem we're still trying to deal with right now. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, we want to enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, responsible citizens. But we want to make sure that all the kids we serve have a plan, graduate on time, and then have a plan for the future. Yes, and so that's what our programs provide. But I think what's most important is our partnerships too.
Yeah. So when a kid comes to Boys and Girls Clubs after school, what happens?
So the first thing they do is they start a program called Power Hour.
Okay.
Power Hour is our homework help, and so they have to do an hour of homework, and even if they don't have homework, they have to do something educational within that hour, and that's where the partnerships come in with the universities, the schools, older kids in the community that come to the Boys and Girls Clubs. We want to make sure that we help the kids do their homework. And then there's extra tutoring as well.
Yeah, you know, since you've been CEO, I've seen how hard you work with the kids here, and we were talking in commercial break. I want to stay on my mark so Alyssa doesn't come yell at me. We talked about the investment aspect of public safety, making certain that kids have something to do constructive when they're not in school and on the weekends. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't get them when they're young, Clay, then that's where we have the problems, just like, you know, Judge Johnson said, you know, earlier in your segment. So I think 83% of the kids we serve are ages 6 to 18, and if we cannot get them then and have that impact with them and give them something to do, give them hope and opportunity, and provide a safe place for them to learn and grow, then that's where we're going to have those problems when they get older.
You and I are also a part of the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation, and there is currently an initiative between Boys and Girls Clubs and the foundation to put a facility in North Baton Rouge, the Inspiration Center. And this facility will house programming and activities, and we hope it'll be a model that we can replicate across the parish.
Right.
Because we have to invest in the kids.
Yeah, and the most important thing is not just the kids, it's the families, as well.
Well, mention that a little bit, because you get the kids, but there's also programming that does help the entire house.
Right, provides wraparound services. We'll be able to provide programs for kids, for parents, whether it be educational, social, emotional, partnering with Department of Family Services, the state, EBR schools, hopefully, again, talking to Judge Johnson, you know, doing something with OJJDP where we do things with the court in a diversion program. So, look, even having a washer and dryer in there so people can come and wash their clothes as a family. I mean, there's so many things that the Inspiration Center will provide for not just the youth, but the families within the community, and that's where we start changing the generational thing.
Talk about it. I got about a minute. This summer and the summer programming that you'll have available.
Yeah, so our summer program is going to start June 10th, all day from 7:30 to 5:30. We will provide breakfast and lunch and a snack. Yeah. Again, those programs, I think it's so important for summer because of summer learning loss. Yeah. And so, again, being able to partner with EBR schools, really give that enrichment as well. But I want to make sure the kids have fun, too. Yeah.
And how can people learn about the programming if they want to sign their kids up?
They can go to our website, www.bgcmetrolouisiana.org.
There's a website. You can log on and sign your kids up and support this organization. Make a donation too.
Yes.
Yeah, they will take your cash.
They surely will.
It takes money to feed these kids.
Yes.
All right. Next week, we're going to be talking about the aftermath of the crime session and the regular session that's on the way. I'm telling you what, Johnny Asian was in here and booby-trapped my earpiece. That's what's going on. We're going to have a conversation after we finish the show. But we'll talk a little bit about the session that ended and the one that's on the way on next week's edition of The Clay Young Show. And again, don't forget to check out podcast225.com and hear my conversation with Judge Don Johnson. See you next week.